Hello my fair friends, I am Ruby Ruse. This is Baby Bunny and welcome to Fairy Fortunes. I do certainly hope that you have noticed that I look very different from what I normally look like. So I would love to share with you why I have changed my shape. And that is what this video is going to be about. One of the reasons that I wanted to look different, to come across a little bit more human, was because I wanted to attend an event and I wasn't sure how what kind of reaction I would get as a full-on fairy. So I am, of course, a shapeshifter. As many of you know, I am half Puka, which is a shape-shifting fae being from the lands of Ireland. So I was like, well, I might as well use some of my shape-shifting abilities for myself so that I can attend this event. The event was actually the grand reopening of an organization now named the Occult Society in Chicago, Illinois. It really became apparent to me how much magic there is in mundane things. The reality is that magic isn't just for children. That fantastical and immersive experience is not just for children. Adults are very drawn to fantasy and play and magic, and that doesn't go away, nor do I think that it should. I think that the world has so many challenges that taking time to appreciate fantasy and creativity and having a magical moment is incredibly important. And I don't think it's just important, I think it is a basic need of all living beings. It is a need to have that creative expression. It is not a want, because without that creative expression, without that ability to have enjoyment, to have that fun in your life, to have that frivolity, you're missing something. And in fact, another correlation to my clothing today is that several years ago I was introduced to the Montessori model of the fundamental human needs. So I will have another link in the description box down below on what the Montessori fundamental needs are. And one of those needs is that creative self-expression. Many of these Montessori models call that expression vanity, which is just so off-putting. People say that vanity is the bad thing. I don't think Bunny agrees with that. We don't think that vanity is a bad thing. Vanity is actually integral and is important, and it is a fundamental need of all living beings, is to have that unique expression. So, but also one of the fundamental needs for, well, other than, so for example, Bunny doesn't need clothes. Bunny has fur. He doesn't need any clothes. So that might be an exception for forest animals, is they don't need clothing. But human beings and many of the fae spirits need clothing. It is a fundamental need and can be a mode of expression. Now, what's interesting about the Montessori model of the fundamental human needs is that it is not, it is meant to be a way for the children to study other cultures, actually. And so they look at how a particular society expresses themselves. So how do they build their shelters? And why do they build their shelters? For example, a society that lives in a mountainous region would probably need to build their structures, their shelters out of sturdy material, because in the mountains it would get very windy and cold. So they would need something that is more structural and heavier to protect them against those elements that are there. If a society is water-based, like Venice, how does the water affect the structures that they build to house themselves? So this is how the Montessori children use the Montessori model to look at why a particular society does things in a particular way. However, usually how they introduce this model to the very youngest of their children is one of the assignments that they will give to very young children is to how they apply the fundamental needs to themselves. So what does their house look like? How do they like to express themselves? And then another one of the fundamental needs is clothing. So how do they dress? And I think that there is a lot of magic in the fundamental needs, and actually I use the fundamental needs model actually to create a system of financial abundance. And it was incredibly successful. If you would like to learn more about my fundamental needs abundance magic, please leave a comment down below, and perhaps I can do a longer video on what that was. But clothing, I think, is a very magical mode of expression, because it's one that, like, most people in today's day and age do not cut a hole in a fur that they've skinned from an animal that they ate and throw it over their heads and call it clothing to protect them against the elements. We don't do that anymore. Clothing is taken on a whole different set of concepts. Clothing answers quite a few questions, and it can shape and define us in many different ways. So I think clothing can be a form of magic. For example, I'd like to kind of go over my outfit. So as you'll notice, as I said, I was explaining that I tend to prefer floral themes. So this lovely blouse that I'm wearing has a beautiful floral print on the sleeves. The sleeves are very voluminous, much like the main coat that I wear in most of my videos. And of course the color pink for my namesake Ruby. Although rubies are usually, they can be this color, but rubies are usually a more deeper pinkish red color. So I have shown that with the color of my skirt. If you'd like to see the skirt I'm wearing, please do check those links down below with the links of what I'm wearing in this video, so that you can get a clearer picture of my skirt. So that the skirt that I'm wearing really reflects that deep ruby red color that I so gravitate towards as my namesake. But even some of the jewelry items that really might coincide with, because our jewelry really is more of a reflection of our clothing than it is any other thing. It is something that we put on our bodies, not necessarily for protection, but to say something about who we are, really. So, for example, I have transformed my wings into this beautiful butterfly-shaped necklace. So that is where I have put my wings, to masquerade as a human. There's a lot of information going on in this outfit that I'm wearing. I'm trying to communicate that I am still a fairy, even though I am masquerading as a human. So that really opens a big door to me with our clothing. Now, some people are very against the fashion world. They think it's very superficial and negative. That certain sizes and shapes of bodies are what's deemed acceptable, and if you do not fall into that particular shape, that means then that you're unacceptable. So I can see why there is some negative backlash towards fashion. Some people really push back against believing that their clothes say something about them, and that's the thing, is that I don't think that clothes necessarily say something about you. I think that you are saying something about yourself with your clothes. So it's not about the clothes doing the talking, you're doing the talking. And your clothes are conveying a message, I believe. They are putting out there in the world a magical message, a manifestation of your inner soul. So, for example, a lot of people believe in comfort, and they feel that they don't want to dress up. I would say that perhaps many people would think this is a very dressy outfit, because it is a skirt and blouse. It is not a t-shirt. It's not a pair of sweatpants. And I would say that I find this outfit just as comfortable as the sweatshirt that I was wearing at Rogues and Ruffians when I was so cold in my tent. I think that this is just as comfortable. I was wearing that sweatshirt for warmth and coziness, and I don't think that I would want to wear this blouse at Rogues and Ruffians in a tent in Wisconsin. But I really feel that this outfit is just as comfortable. It's just serving a different purpose and a different function. And with this one, I'm definitely trying to communicate a different message with what I'm trying to say with my clothing. But I do think that we communicate messages with our clothing no matter what we're wearing. So with the Rogues and Ruffians, I was communicating a message that I was trying to stay warm, wasn't I? So if you do like sweatpants and t-shirts, and that is your aesthetic and that is what you want to wear, just make sure that the message that you want to put out is, I want comfort. This is what I'm about. I am a comforting soul, and I choose comfort over everything else. And if you are, as I said, I like graceful lines in my clothing. I like my clothing to have elements of the natural world in it. Flowers and leaves and growing things and being a part of something bigger than myself. So I find that a lot of my clothing communicates that message, that it has those elements in it. Another thing that I love to wear is I love to wear the color green. And I think that what I am subconsciously saying with that color is that I love that, I want to be a part of that vibrancy, that thrum of the greater world, of the living world that we live on. And I want to be a part of that and help it to thrive. And so that is a subconscious message that I'm actually communicating with the clothing that I choose to wear. I think another message that I try to communicate with my clothing is that I am very much all about playfulness and about embracing creativity and frivolity, which is a great reason why Baby Bunny is always with me, is that I think that imagination is vitally important. I do not think that it should be dismissed. I think that we need to embrace more of it and not less of it. We don't need to be so stuffy, and we have this idea that adults don't need fantasy, they don't need creativity, and I really find that that is not the case. In fact, when adults give up their creativity, when they give up their sense of fun and fantasy, is that their lives seem very lifeless to me. Now, that might not be their personal opinion of it, but it has been my experience that people that eschew fantasy, that eschew the spirit of playfulness and imagination, that they become very unpleasant. I'm sorry if that has been my experience with people that are trying to so hard to be so grown up. And what's interesting is when I had a very interesting experience when I encountered some people dressed this way and not wearing my wings and not showing the markings that I have on my face, is that they thought I was so young, even though I wasn't dressed with glitter and my sparkles and that kind of thing. They thought I was so young. And they were saying things to me like, well, when you're my age. And I'm laughing. And the reason that I'm laughing is that I knew that I was profoundly older than them. And yet they had this perception that they were so much older because they had given up on frivolity and maybe even vanity and expression and fun and playfulness. And the reality was is that I was the one that was vastly older. So, and on this channel, I really, I don't really do a lot of magic beyond divination on this channel. And I will think about bringing to you some more traditional forms of magic. But the reality is I don't really do a lot of traditional magic in my personal life, even when I'm not at a festival and I'm not on camera making YouTube videos. I just don't feel that it's necessary because I'm busy living a magical life. So I find magic in clothing. I find magic in Disneyland. I find magic in Baby Bunny. And I find magic in the cats that I've adopted to share my life with me. And when I walk outside and I'm within the natural world that means so much to me, when I touch flowers, when I see the green grass and smell the beautiful trees, that to me is magic. I don't need to make magic. I'm already magical. I'm already magical. So that's not to say that we shouldn't do spells. I do think that magic is wonderful. I just mentioned that I do have I use the fundamental needs to create a magical financial abundance spell. So I do think that there's a time and a place for a little extra oomph, a little traditional magic, a little ceremonial magic, a little chaos magic. I think that there's room for great experimentation with all of those things. But I think at the end of the day, I think what's more important is living magically, being a part of the magic that is infused in our everyday lives. Just being alive and taking a breath is a magical act. And why not celebrate that in the expression of our clothing? So with that, with the close of this video, I'd really love to hear from you, like, what are some of your favorite things to wear? What are the colors that speak to you? I mentioned that I really love wearing ruby themed colors, so I really love that beautiful blushing pink and the deep burgundies of the ruby color, of the ruby stone. And I love the color green because it resonates so much with the grass and the growing trees and the leaves that unfold in the spring. So those are things that are very important to me, and those are all over my wardrobe and reflected in the jewelry pieces that speak to me. So that I'm really always trying to put on my body the things that are most important to me in the world today. So those are the things that speak to me. And with my clothing, I think the message that I'm trying to convey is that playful spirit, the gracefulness of life itself. I like to send a message of beauty, I think. So, there's so many messages that our clothes convey. Even our sweatpants, I think. Like I said, that can, when we choose to wear sweatpants, I think that message could definitely be one of comfort, one of security, one of softness. These are all messages that sweatpants could convey. But I do think that we need to be careful, because sometimes we wear sweatpants not because we're trying to convey a message of comfort and softness and security. We're trying to convey a message of cover and hiding and trying to say, don't look at me, I'm not worth looking at. So I do think that we need to be very careful about the messages that we convey. And it's not about conveying messages to other people. I think the most important message is the one that we're conveying to ourselves when we are the ones living and working and breathing in the clothes that we choose to wear. So it's not about what others have to say. I do think that other people's opinions can affect us. Of course they do. Words are powerful spells in and of themselves, and people give curses all the time so easily with the nasty comments that they make. So I do think that other people's opinions do affect us, but I think the most important opinion, the message that means the most, the words that hurt us the most, are the ones that we say to ourselves. So I think that we need to pay more attention to how we dress, the message that we're conveying when we choose a certain article of clothing, because it's magic and it's important and there's a lot to be said. So I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what is your favorite thing to wear and what message you think that article of clothing says to you every time that you wear it. And with that, Have a fairyful day.